for our sign in. So go ahead. If your name should already be on it if you came to our first meeting, but if this is your first meeting, you'll want to add your name at the bottom of the doc. Otherwise, just put a check mark under the 925 category, and you should be ready to go. All right. Give everybody a few seconds to sign in.
Reactors highlights. Mountain Dew presents the Joel Deserves Better gift clutch.
All right, so go ahead and sign in if you haven't already. We're going to move on.
Again, if you guys can't find your name on the doc, you can add it to the very bottom of the document.
All right, the link should be on the chat. All right, I'll send the link in one more time. Sorry about that.
While you're doing that, can I ask, I have 2 PDFs you might enjoy. How can I get them to the group? It's the best way.
Let's see. If you want to talk about them, we can give you permission to share your screen.
No, I just want to share them. They're too big.
Okay.
I don't want to take the time with them.
Or you can send them into the chat, I believe.
I can drop a PDF in the chat?
Yeah, on the 3 dots in the chat, you should be able to. Can you normally
We'll have them send an email as well with those as attachments?
Yeah.
An email.
Maybe that's the best way of doing it.
I'm sorry. I'm looking for something.
Huh.
What am I looking for to drop those in?
Doesn't look like you might not be able to do it in the CSUN Zoom. Probably an email would be best then.
Okay, so I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
You
perfect.
can share with everyone. Yeah.
So cinemaclub@my.csun.edu, and then we can share it with everyone.
Okay, so hold on. So it's Cinema Share, right? That's the email address.
cinemaclub@my.csun.edu.
Cinema Club. Okay.
All right. So we'll get started on the PowerPoint right now then.
All right, so for Cinema Club, we have our movie recommendations list, and I see that there's been a lot of people actually putting stuff on that list, and we're super excited about it. And I think the way that we're going to go about it is we're going to randomize like a big list, since we have about like, what was it, Ian, like 300 and something like different movies. We're going to randomize them, break them up, and then we're going to let you guys vote on them for which ones we're going to actually end up watching, because I love you guys, but I'm not going to watch 300 films. So if you guys want to contribute to that, you guys can go on the Discord to our recommendations channel, and then you guys can contribute and maybe get chosen.
All right, so I shared the link in the chat for the movie recommendations. Go ahead and throw on your recommendations. Remember that it's in alphabetical order, so to avoid duplicates, make sure you put them in the right place. All right.
Okay, and we just want to remind you what we have coming up for the next few weeks. So today we're going to have a speaker with Professor Hoggan, and then next week we're going to have another professor come and speak to us about the TV portfolio, Professor Saunders. And then we're going to have a screenwriting night the next week, and then we're going to have another guest speaker in Tony Molina. And then we'll have a table readings of scripts that we hopefully have started written on October 9th, and then on October 30th, we'll have a horror movie themed movie screening night. So make sure you come to the events over the next month.
Okay, and once again, here are our socials. You can follow us here. We'll be sending you guys emails through the email as well, but you can also find a lot of updates through our socials and on Discord.
Okay, I think I'm going to stop sharing now.
All right.
Are you guys recording this meeting?
We are.
Is it going to be posted somewhere?
We will probably upload it to Unless YouTube link and share it with everybody on Discord and through email.
Got it.
All right. All right, on to our guest of honor tonight, Professor Hoggan, our club advisor and reviewer on the film portfolio. So he came last year and had some really, really great advice on applying to the film program. And so we're really happy to have him back again for some tips and tricks and some information about the film program.
I'll give you tips, but the trips are $5 each.
All right. You're on, Professor.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One is that you're all looking for information that will get you into the program, except for those of you that are already in. So I'm guessing that's what most of you want this evening. But you're also beginning down the path towards finding employment. Now, in a very competitive business, you know, there are over 400 film schools that are pumping out graduate every year. So you're, aside from everybody that's already in Hollywood taking up the jobs, you're going to be going into a competitive situation to which you can do it, even though it's competitive, because most people don't have the fire and the ability to stick through it. And we're finding that most of our CSUN students actually do. You know, you got a lot of gumptions. You know already what it's like to be in Hollywood, and you all know already how hard it is. What you're looking for is some advice on how to manage in this kind of a situation. So I'd like to address two parts to what I think you want this evening. One is advice on the portfolio, on how to do that smartly. So we will tackle that first. But the other thing you have to do, and you are doing right now, is beginning a network. Networking is the key to finding employment on a regular basis. And that means that you cannot be passive. You cannot assume that because you've shot one or two films and they've made, you know, some headline somewhere on YouTube or whatever, that that's going to work. It doesn't. Thousands of people are already doing that. And besides that, when the public knows of any job opening anywhere, it's too late. Once it's posted, it's too late. So anybody on the inside of anywhere is who you want to get to know, and you get to know that by creating a network base. And believe me, the CSUN Mafia is widespread across Hollywood. And so pay attention to those people, the students that are older than you. You know, next semester, my guess is that we're going to be back on campus in part, and that we're going to be starting to shoot. You want to be involved with as many people, you know, in a senior shoot, even if it's for one day, that's all you can afford. That's one day where you're meeting people and they're getting to meet you. So you need to think of yourself as a product. You know, Joe Smith as a product, Alex as a product. and know that everything that you do is about selling that product to people who don't know you. It's about reframing how you think about your journey. It's not about you learning something and then you going out and, making the world sparkle a little bit. It's not that. The industry needs people who are easy to work with, who are smart, who when called upon to be creative can do it. And that's what they're looking for. And that world is kind of nebulous. People advance into directing or they shift over to production design. We go up and down ladders. And so you need to think of yourself as a director. Hello? You need to think of yourself as a director, but you sell yourself as a filmmaker. Somebody asks you what you want to do, you don't say, I want to be a director, because there's 100 million directors. It sounds very immature. But if you package yourself as a filmmaker who just loves filmmaking and you don't care what it is, and I think that's true of all of you, then that's how you package yourself. So as I'm looking at my screen, I'm only in this, there's 2 pages here, right? What's the second page? Second page is worse. Most of the screens are black with names. I am not seeing your face. And your face is the first object that will leave an impression on me. I can remember face and I can't remember names. Ask Smithfield. Right? She didn't even roll her eyes. Anyway, you got the idea. You're selling a commodity. And so you have to do the product management. And we can talk about that more down the road, particularly as you're getting closer to graduation, about how you do that. How do you present yourself in an employment situation? And by the way, you have to be pretty doggone smart about it, because people you and I make decisions about the people in front of us, whether we like them or not, within 10 to 15 seconds. That's it. I know that's pretty dadgum scary, but when we walk through the door, that is a presentation of you. So you have to think about it. And by the way, there's not one way you can present yourself. You have to think about each job opportunity and the environment in that situation as to how you dress, how you talk. The more research you do about company and the people in it as you can, it's one of the things that networks help with, then the more comfortable they're going to be with you. You've got to make them feel in 30 seconds that you're worth their time. So, and I'm saying this all now, and I'm kind of barking and sounding a little bit like I'm on a soapbox, but after I worked for 30 years in the industry, and I know it can be pretty lethal. And people make decisions and like us or dislike us for the weirdest of things, but mostly it comes from that first impression. And so you're looking to understand and appreciate how you, as a unique individual, can best present yourself so that you are what they're looking for. So what they're looking for, first of all, is somebody who they can get along with, where they just flat out like you as a human being. So smiling is a good idea. You know all of this. I'm just calling it to your attention because you're in the middle of presenting yourself right now. This is my first time meeting, and I see all the pictures are on, except on the second page. So here you are, filmmakers, right? So you should be framing yourself, not like this, not like that, because that's really shitty framing. I'm looking at you and I'm getting an impression about you. And so if that's the case, then look at your background, look at your camera angle, look at the lighting and say, is this friendly? Is this putting me in the best light? So David says, yeah, he's bobbing his, he clicked himself right, disappeared just like that. That's funny. Okay, you got the idea. I'm kind of harping at you a little bit, but now is the time to start thinking about that. And you know it, you know, when, particularly when you're getting into classes and you're in the film program, part of your goal, I'm sure, is to have a project where you're the director of a senior thesis, senior showcase project, a thesis film, right? That would be the best thing that could happen to you. Well, that's going to happen if you work hard at learning how to tell a good story, but also if the professors in the program get to know you. Because at some point, we have to decide, let's say you turn in a really good a script, dynamite script, but then we have to think, can you do this? Are you capable or talented enough? And if we don't know you, we can't answer the question. So given our time frame, we'll move on. See what I mean? So you want to make yourself available. You want to participate as much as you can in any part of the process so that on your resume, you have separate line items that sort of indicate to people what you're capable of doing and what your interest is. And the more diversified you are, the better. Any questions on that so I can get off the soapbox? Presentation is it. You have a very short order of time. It's like the elevator speech. You don't have much time to persuade people that you're cool. You got to think about that. Any questions on that, on the networking and presentation? I'm not seeing any heads. Okay, so let's talk about the portfolio. I'm not sure where you're going to fit in this. We are energetically becoming or applying to have our program, the film option, changed to a BFA. The difference between a BA in film and a BFA in film is that it lets us give you more classes. We can provide more classes and prepare you better. So we're in the middle of that. So if you're all coming in the program, you're applying, I'm going to assume some of you are already in, but some of you, I'm assuming that you're applying this semester, right? And the deadline's coming up pretty quick. I don't have on my my calendar where you're, when's the applications due?
I think it's due October 12th.
It's
Or something like
October
that.
11th at midnight.
Okay, all right, so that gives you 3 weeks. Holy shit. All right, okay, so.
It might just be me, but I'm applying in, I think it's May or something.
Okay, you're going to apply, it wouldn't be May, it would be probably March, middle of next semester. Okay, how many are doing it? How many of you are applying this semester? Keep your hands up so I can jump between screens. So we have, it looks like a third of this screen, and it looks like a third of that screen. Okay, how many are applying in the spring? Okay, let me jump to the next screen if you don't mind. Okay, so some of you don't even have a date. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the process I'm going to give you is really the same. You know, how to look at a process in a way that puts you to best advantage. The portfolio essentially does the same thing as that first impression in very short order. You need to impress whoever the reviewers are. By the way, there are about 8 reviewers that review all the portfolios. So there's quite a few people. And so let me give you the backstory. When you submit on that date, then all those portfolios then are vetted by the office to make sure they're all legitimate, that the people applying really are students and they really have done the work. They actually go in and prove that. And once they're all proved, then they get passed out to the different reviewers. And we try to keep it faculty just because, you know, you're a part of us and we're a part of you. So it just makes sense that we're looking at that. But we can only take in around 50 a semester because we're limited by the number of rooms and equipment. And now that television has started its own version of film production, it makes it even more difficult. It didn't help the problem. And the reason there's the portfolio is simply because back at the turn of the century, you know, in 2001 and 2, students couldn't get classes to graduate. They would declare themselves as film major, and it could take them 7 years to graduate. Can you imagine? Only because it was so impacted that it couldn't happen. We only have a building so large and so many classrooms, and that's it. So we had to create the portfolio as a way to find the people that could be best served by the program. So it had to be fair and it had to be equitable and unbiased in every way that possibly can be. And so that's why the portfolio was put in place. So that leaves us around, and by the way, we tend to take a little over the 50 number because Nate and I are willing to take more in the bottleneck classes of the 355 that you have to take. 355 is the 300 level of the 250 class. And that's sort of the restriction. And so we'll take more than that, but on average, we get about 90 applicants. And the worst we had was last semester was 140. Yikes. So you can see what I'm going to say next, why it's going to matter. You have an advantage being in the cinema club because you're going to hear stuff that the transfer students from the other colleges are not going to hear. You know, you're going to get some advice that they can't get. So, you know, it's good for you, the fact that you're taking initiative to not only do whatever you like doing with the club, but also it gives you some inside look at how our system works. Okay, so on the due date in the middle of the semester, you're going to turn them in, the portfolios are vetted, and then they go out and then they're weighed, and each portfolio has the potential of 100 points. So you're trying in the strategy, you're trying to gain points. Okay, so the way it works out, the 10 essay questions, that's worth 3 points each. Oh, let me tell you, but first you have the essay, that's worth 30 points. The short answers is 30 points, and your photo essay, which is 30 points, that's 90, and then you have your GPA. So your GPA is only worth 10 points. So it's not a big deal. Besides, you can't do anything about it, it's too late. So if you have a B average, out of the 10 points, you probably have 7 anyway. So it's nothing to really worry about unless you have not met the prerequisite requirements for the grade. That's the only time the GPA will really matter to you. Okay, so we're good on that. So
Professor,
yes.
I actually had a question. Could you repeat what the various sections were? You said there was the essay questions, the portfolio, your GPA, and then there was another one?
Yeah, Aiden, by the way, any of you who want to jump in and interrupt me, go right ahead. Just turn on your mic and say, wait a minute. You have my permission to do that. Okay, so the test is worth 100 points. Your GPA is worth 10. Your short answers, your 10 short answers are worth 30. Your essay is worth 30. And your photo essay is worth 30. So there's 4 parts to the portfolio.
Thank you.
So what we're going to talk about is then how do you approach each of those, at least the 3. How do you approach them in a way that will get you the most points? So the first thing that the readers will read is the short answers. So you're going to set the tone by how you answer the first 2 or 3 questions. Right? It's just like that when you walk in a room for an interview, you're going to make an impression. So our understanding of you as a smart and thoughtful person is going to be in those questions, right? Okay, so if you've read the short answer questions, there are a variety of kinds of questions, but the approach to answering them smartly and getting the most numerical value is this. Let's say, I believe the first question is, who's your favorite author, right? Is that, somebody got that around to make sure I'm not?
Yes.
Okay, so.
They changed it this year. The first question, I'm not sure what it is verbatim, but it's basically if you were a character in a film, what's your introductory scene?
Almost the same thing, right? Well, that's right. They did just change it. Holy mackerel. So I'm going to stick with the who's your favorite author because it's in my memory to give an example on that. So the question is sort of basically asking, hey, have you ever read a book? Now, filmmakers are not notorious academics. Some of you like to read a lot, but most of you would rather be out shooting the camera or cutting the film and the editing. You're visually oriented people in general. But the first question is asking them, have you read a book? So the first thing you would do is make a declarative sentence. My favorite author is, and of all of his work, my favorite of his work is blah, 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 right? Like John Steinbeck is my favorite author, and of all of his works of Mice and Men is my favorite book. So that's a declarative sentence that's telling the reader, you've read a book. It's worth 1 point. Now you need to sort of prove that you've read the book. So you can do that by saying, my favorite part of the book is, the chapter on blah, 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 where a character was challenged to do something they didn't want to do and the struggle they had to make. An explanation of what in the book spoke to you, comes to your memory, to the point where you want to talk about it. You'll write it in the portfolio, right? And generally, when you and I go to a movie or read a book, if we like it, there's always something that bugs us in our memory. It just locks in there, and we'll be sleeping or thinking or daydreaming, and it'll come back just because there's something important about that. And that's what you're looking for. So you can speak to that in a way, right? So you've got a declarative sentence, and then you have evidence that you've read the book, and then personalize it. The third thing will get you the 3 points. That's where you sort of explain to the reader why personally this is important to you. Because it was a familiar situation in your family, or it related to something else that happened. You know what I mean? You sort of personalize it in whatever way works for you. Declarative sentence, evidence, and personalize. So if you use that metric in all of the questions, that's what you got to do somehow or other, then that will paint the picture of you as being smart and thoughtful. Any questions on the short answers? None? I can see your eyes wide awake, so I know none of you are sleeping.
Professor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's just that other guy. I don't know his name. He said they changed it to what would be your introductory scene. I said, I'm going to be blunt. I have absolutely no clue how I would answer that question.
What was it? What's the question? Let's talk about it.
What would be your introductory scene in a movie? I have absolutely no clue how I would answer that.
Have you taken a 250 class yet?
That's next semester for me.
Okay, so and when are you applying? Next
I'm
semester?
applying in March, hopefully.
Okay, so you're going to apply next semester. Well, that makes sense, because one of the things you could do is think about any of the 250 films that were done in your class, or if you've done any films in high school, and just rethink them. Take a little ownership on those ideas and say, okay, I'm going to open up this film, and here's how I do it.
Sadly, I've never had the privilege of working on a film before.
Okay, fair enough. So, what does an audience need in the first minute of a film?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the class.
Character production.
The odds, as an audience,
You
we need to know where we are in time and space. We got to know that. We're going to sit in a theater and it's blacking out. We kind of want to know how to watch the story. So we need to cue the audience in some way or other as to where they are in time and space. The next thing we want to know is where are we supposed to focus our emotional attention? Within 30 seconds in a short film, you got to tell us, you got to show us who it is we're supposed to be paying attention to and why. You know, if we just see a, you know, a handsome person or a pretty person walking down the street, oh, that's just matter of fact. But if we see them walking down the street and then get sideswiped by a school bus, we're going to go, holy shit, I like that person. That's not fair. They're hurt. You know, we're invested in the object of our affection or our attention or our empathy. Okay, does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Give the audience what you and I need when we commit to watch a film. What is it that we really need to have to be invested in the film? What do we need? It's not the news. It's not an incident. It's something that goes on that gives us a reason and a value to watch the film. And by the way, that's the same for films shot for television, you know, episodic films shot for television, all that stuff. So, and by the way, my explanation of what I just said is in the PDFs that I sent. I don't know who's getting it. Hope you got it. And then you can disseminate it because it sort of talks about the history of film and its sort of its journey as it's changed through time. Let's see, now where was I? So, Keon, so in terms of your question and trying to understand what that is, you now know that as you move into the next semester of what you've got to learn. So I would get the portfolio questions and read them and start talking about them in the cinema club. There's no
I can't find them. I looked everywhere for the film and TV portfolios. I can't find them online anywhere. I'm not sure where to look.
They're supposed to be online. Whoa.
I just searched up CSUN portfolios and I can't find them.
Okay, tell you what.
Oh, there it is. Someone sent it in the chat.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you very much. So you should, by the way, be looking at these questions so that you have time, one, to kind of understand them and think about them, and then start to work on them so that you can rework them and rethink them and refine them so you present yourself in a smart way. Here's what we've noticed. Remember I talked about the number of students that apply, right? So let's use the number 90 because that's not a bad average over the last 15 years or so that we've been doing this. So, and we're going to take in 50. So that means 40 students are going to not make the program. They'll need to move into something else. And by the way, it's a no harm, no foul to apply. And in fact, in our faculty, we've been trying to figure out a way for students to prepare at the same time for both the television and the film option so that they don't have to repeat anything or lose a semester just to get ready. So just know you can talk about that with Quinn next week when he comes to visit with you. So you've got the idea and the short answers, right? So you're going to read the question and you're going to answer it as best you can. And then you need to make sure, once you've written the answers down for all of them, give it to somebody, vet it, give it to somebody to read so you make sure that they understand how you wrote it. Don't assume.
Are there like professors or counselors or advisors we can talk to about this stuff, like to hand in our answers to and get reviews?
No, well,
or?
you can ask, but most of them are on the committee and won't do it because that biases them. But there are other, you have English teachers. Don't use family, by the way, because they're already biased, unless your family is brutally honest. Like mine is, but mine will let me know in no uncertain terms how bad I write. So But anyway, get somebody to vet it, you know, even in the club, so that when they read the answer, it's articulate, it's good grammar. And for some of you, you know, English is not your first language. It's a lot more work to be clear about your answers. But clear you need to be, right? So I think we're okay with the short answers. You've got a 3-step process to kind of use as a guide. You need to state yourself in an articulate way. It's assumed since you graduated from high school and you're, you know, into your junior year in college, you should be able to write basic English in a way that's, you know, that's persuasive. It's not just doing it, it's persuading people. So we have 40 people, usually on the numbers. At least a third, it's really obvious that they're going to be in the program. And there's usually a third on the other side where the way they turned in the portfolio, it's obvious that they don't need to be in the program, won't help them at all. So that leaves this middle third that we end up having to struggle with. One part of the application asks for a skill set. So rather than think about what you want to be, think about the odds and how you're going to compete with the odds. So most people apply to become cinematographers, but we can only take in 16 cinematographers. You are going to have the option for a producing skill set, an editing skill set, and a sound skill set. And the sound skill set actually has 2 parts, production sound and post-production sound, both of which have high demand for jobs. You know, in fact, one of our students, Katie, just won an Emmy for editing. It's in editing, right? And most of the jobs these days, the larger number of the jobs are in editing and post-production. But you don't know, I don't know, what jobs are going to be available when you graduate. There's no formula. And there's no guarantee that if you decide to be a cinematographer now, that's what's going to be offered to you later. There's just no way to know. Now, if you still want to be that, fine. You know, you can still try for it, doesn't stop it. But the odds are, particularly when you're trying to get in the program, to think more about getting in the program than picking a vocation. Maybe that's the better way to say it. Right now, you want to get in the program, and we allow for you to take all the other classes anyway if there's room. There is some compensation for that. So this is not a do or die selection, you know, when you have to say what skill set. So
we have a couple of questions in the chat.
thank you.
One's from Emma. What would you say creates a distinction between those who should obviously be in the program versus obviously be out?
Good question. It's how they do the program. They haven't done spell check. You know, some of them are pretty arrogant. In fact, we had one that put 1 sentence down for everything and says, I shouldn't have had to do all this. I'm good enough, you should just take me in. That's pretty scary, right? Usually it's the ones that wait to the last minute. They're not very thoughtful. They have a lot of mistakes in their process. And also their storyboards are not very thoughtful. I'll get to the storyboards in just a moment. But that's a good question. Is there another one? I should probably go through.
Yeah, there's another one from Cheyenne. I'm not a film major. Is this session not for me? And this could also apply to people who are considering applying into the program but are unsure about whether they want to be in it.
Well, you know what? So I guess if she's going into screenwriting or some other emphasis, because we have multimedia, which is fantastic, or emerging media. We have media management, which is an awesome major. You know, it's one good option. If you like the business side of things, you like producing and you like organizing and business part of it, our media management is a really good option. So there's other options. You know, if you want to be a filmmaker, want to try for it, it's a no harm, no foul. Because our requirements are the same, except for television, the same as everybody else. What was the other part of that question? That was,
I think you covered it.
okay, so it's the 1/3 that don't make it, usually it's because they just didn't take it seriously. And there were a lot of mistakes, and it just seems sort of like a flippant thing that they're kind of just sort of playing with. And that's what we noticed.
Is there any difference, like with your opportunity in the program, if you do pick a different skill set like sound or editing?
All it means is if you pick sound or editing, that you'll get a lot of training. For instance, the ones that go through editing in the 352 class are Avid certified. So that's sitting on a resume if you want to get into post-production somewhere or other, that you have that qualification. You know, that's one of the benefits.
Wait, you become Avid certified through their classes?
That's correct.
Okay.
So anyway, it's an option, and it's a choice that affects your getting in. So just know that, you know, if you really dream to be a cinematographer and that's what you want to go for, then by golly, just go for it. I'm just saying that, you know, if you're playing the odds, then maybe you don't want to do that. And by the way, as you know, on the application, you have a first choice and a second choice. So then the second choice then becomes strategy.
Would
Right?
anyone who put cinematography as their second choice ever get it, since it's the most exclusive selection?
No, because of the numbers, just the odds.
So if someone put it as first and you didn't have room and you wanted them to be in, would you give them like their second option?
Yes, then we would make the invite to the second option. We do that all the time. Good
We have
question.
another question from Katie. If you want to be in something like set design, set decoration, but you still have to be involved with the film television program, or is that separate?
That's separate. And by the way, we don't have a major in that at all. You need to go to the theater department. They're the only, and maybe the art department, where you would actually get some, you know, some education in that part. It's not that we may not in the future, we just don't have room in the program to do that. And yet it's critically important because the camera is going to point at some sort of something in the set, and it needs to look cinematic. So we need production designers, and we do have them on in the crew list, but they don't get much training in it. Most of the students that become production designers are so because that's just what they like, and they just do it. But so the most popular skill set is cinematography. Producing is new, so I don't know how that's going to sit. This semester will be the first time where we're going to have those 4 options. Editing is the next second popular, and sound is the least. So the least popular one is your best track in. If you accept the idea that the goal is to get in, then position yourself there, and just know that once you're in the program, then we'll have the opportunity to get into the other classes. But right now, the portfolio is the strategy. It's the gateway to get in. So you've got to think of the questions in a way that's a little less about your vocation for the rest of your life and simply a matter of how do you play the game to get in the program. I know I've said that 4 times, but it's your advantage. You're looking, that's what your goal is. You're looking for your advantage. Okay, so we went through the short answers, right?
Excuse me, Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
So you said there's going to be a production track we can do in the future?
Producing.
And what would that entail?
It's learning how to be like a first AD or a line producer. It's the business side of running a film show.
Okay, thank you.
It's like being a line producer or a UPM or a first AD, you know, all those things are part of, the director doesn't manage the business of the set. the first AD does.
Mhm.
And so this would be a skill set that teaches you how to schedule, how to manage budgets, hopefully how to deal with people and make the day. It's, film production is hard work. You've got to shoot so many shots every day, and you don't have much time to light them so they look cinematic. That's the problem with low budget B movies phenomenon. The low budget phenomenon is, how do you get a feature look with no money? And so it takes somebody that's sort of the right brain part, no, the left brain, the logic part of the process, having oversight and sort of keeping the visionary people in line. Otherwise, you'll bust the budget and nobody will want you around. So we can talk about that a little bit more when I get to the end if you want. So the next part of the portfolio is the essay. And I believe, if somebody has it up, I believe it is, tell us an experience that has made you who you are today. Is that right? Somebody got that essay question wrong? Is that right? Am I right, or did they change it?
Yeah, I think
Oh, sorry.
Does somebody have the exact wording? I can pull it up.
Yeah. Give me
I have the exact wording pulled up. It's write and upload a one-page original essay describing a single personal experience that formed who you are as a person today.
Okay, so this is a tough one about ego. The real question is, can you tell a story? The beginning, middle, and end. That's what it's really asking. And so how do you get the 30-point value on this? Well, there's a couple of things, I know the jurists have different opinions on the weight of this, but one of the things that matter to some of them, I'm not one of them, is the grammar. Can you speak the King's English? It's really what they have. They get really annoyed if you have you flop something around and in some way or other that's not proper English. So just know that there'll be some persnickety people that will be doing that, and there's no way for you to know who you're going to get as a jurist. But essentially, it's like making a film. You're going to have your introductory statement. You're going to have your setup. Back in 2004, my family was in this situation, and and then this happened. And when this happened, you sort of describe it so it has dramatic interest to it. So that gets us to an interesting issue in filmmaking. If I were to ask you, what is it that makes an Academy Award-winning short story? What is that? All of you know how to tell a story. You've been telling stories forever. You've been hearing stories since you were, I bet your mommy was reading you stories when you were still in the womb. We've been hearing them way too long, right? So you intuitively know what a story is. You probably know in your mind what a good story is or a meaningful story is. But the question is, what is an award-winning story? What makes that happen? And in my opinion, so just to be fair, I think it's when we meet a really interesting, compelling character who is in a horrible situation and has a hell of a time getting out of it. If we like somebody and we see somebody in the quicksand falling, we're going to be looking around for some way intuitively to find a branch and reach out and try to save you. We're going to invest. So I think that's what it is. So the more situational and the more ordinary it is, the less interesting. So one of the things that annoys Nate Thomas, so I'll just tell you that, is where somebody got all excited and found meaning in life when they got an 8mm camera. I'll tell you, you won't get 2 points out of his score because it's not very mature and it's kind of silly in a way. It may happen. I know that I sparked when something happened. I started horsing around editing. That's how I came through it. And I know it happened, but it wasn't a story. It was just an event, a moment. What the essay is asking for is an event that shaped your life. That means it changed your life in some way. So when you are thinking about your story, know that that's what you're doing. It's not really about you. It's about how you think of what happened to you as a person in this context. You're just a character. And you should have changed in that story. And you know what? In fairness, all of us sitting in this Zoom have had that moment when we opened our eyes and we knew we weren't a little kid anymore. We just weren't an adolescent anymore. And adulthood sort of like started sweeping in and taking over, and we became involved in all that it takes to be mature and be smart and adult and all that stuff. There's always that moment. You might look for that trigger. That's one of the ways to think about your essay. And look for some, and you may have 2 or 3 of them. You're looking for that log line that says this is really unusual and it's fresh. Okay, so now that I've said that, I got to tell you a secret. Most of the portfolios have to be reviewed in very short order in order to get those students lined up to go into film or whatever their other options are going to be. That has to be done in very short order. That usually requires the reviewer. So it takes about like 30 to 45 minutes per portfolio. Got that? And if you get 20 portfolios, you can see that that's a mind-numbing exercise. And the challenge for the reviewer is to be fair and equitable and awake and alive for all the portfolios. We have to do that. It's hard as hell. So what that means for you folks, and you promise not to tell anybody, right? Promise? Cross your heart? Your portfolio has to wake somebody up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's got a spark. So that when you do your short answers or your essay, it's got to be done in such a way that that person who's just trying to do a good job and is getting mind numb from just all the hard work, more yours has a little ping and pop and stuff to it, then the better. The essay is one of those places where you not only think about your story and its dynamic values and its character, but also to put adjectives in there that kind of spice it up, you know, that give it a little life. You know, and by the way, if you're really good at this, you might even find that it may lead you to, you know, other script and story ideas. It may be kind of your nucleus for starting other parts of your storytelling life as a filmmaker. So anyway, where I think I'm going to get lost, right? So you just know that the inside secret is you've got to wake somebody up at 2 in the morning so that when you have your short answer presented to somebody to vet, you also need to present your essay to somebody who you expect and just ask, what do you think about it? And listen. And if they're sitting forward and say, oh shit, that was really interesting, they're leaning forward, then you know you've done a pretty good job. If they're sitting back, well, that the immediate emotional response is an indication that you have some homework to do. Because any story can be made rich and vibrant. And sometimes we hit the home run right away, and sometimes we have to work our way around the bases to get home. But just know that takes time and reflection. Exactly what it takes to be a good editor. You just don't get good footage and come in and cut it. That never happens. Never happens. You know, filmmakers work together. The directors and the editors and the producers are all pushing to make the film better and more award-winning. Well, that's kind of what you're doing with the essay. You know, you have to meet the same audience needs as you would if you were making a film. So if you're thinking about the portfolio in that way, that won't be too unfamiliar to most of you who've already been making films for YouTube or whatever, right? It's the same process. So you just, it's not doing it, it's doing it so it pops and sparkles. So it's really interesting. In my class, I ask, you know, is your film good enough that somebody would pay $50 to watch it? Right? It's just a silly metric, but if the answer is no, then then you don't quit. Then you ask, well, then what do I have to do to make it worth a $50 investment? And you're starting then to be looking at all the elements in the story, that you're looking at the cinematic elements that were shot and how it was edited. All these things then are reworked and rethought and reshot most often. In fact, every single senior film has always had to go back and do reshoots, sometimes for new scenes, or sometimes to improve scenes, and lots of things. But a good filmmaker, like a good portfolio, takes some reflection. So do it now. So Keon, even though you're not really planning to do it till later, get started out now. Do it, because you have time to do it over. And you're going to want to do it over. You know, give yourself that. Don't wait.
Well, my main concern isn't the portfolio, because I know like I have plenty of time to like rewrite everything over and over and over again until I get it how I feel it's perfect. My concern is what am I going to do if I don't get it? Because I came here for film. I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get into the film program.
Okay, I think that's a good question. Can you hold that and remind me about that in a minute? Because I'll bet at least half of the people here in this meeting have the same question, right?
Sure.
The advantage of being in the club is that your odds improve a lot just because of what you're learning about the process. But let me finish on the third one, the photo essay. Now, all of you are supposed to have taken the Art 250 class. That class happens up in the art department, and we don't have a lot of control about their pedagogy. But what we're hoping is that you get a good sense of a still camera, you know, how the lens and the f-stops and all the other technical components of the camera, so that we don't lose time in the 250 class trying to teach that. We want you to already understand something about the basic mechanics of a digital camera in particular, or a film camera, so that it's not strange to you. So taking the Art 250 is why you want to do that. You know, it helps speed the program up. The advantage is that you have an art a cinematographer or a photography teacher. I don't know who's teaching in the CSUN art department, who's teaching that now, but the ones that I have known are really good. And they're approachable. And they also know that taking their class is something you need to do to get in the program. What that does is give you somebody to go to with your photo essay, because film faculty can't look at your photo essay because that would bias us, right? But that doesn't mean you can't go to somebody that you respect, that you can look at the imagery. So there's 3 parts to the photo essay. So each one of them is worth 10 points. One is the story. You know, I think what is it, 12? You have 12 cells or 12 frames. I think I can't remember what the number is. So yes. You have to, yeah, so think about it like a, you know, like a comic book. You're going to tell a story with a limited number of images. So if you can't obviously then tell, you know, the War of the Worlds or the Matrix in 12 shots, not possible. So you need to think of telling a story that might be part of an act. You know, you're not going to tell a full story. You just need an event that has a beginning, middle, and end, and sort of gives the audience, you know, something that connects us with the character and the problem. So when you're thinking about the story arc, you know, what does an audience need? Well, that first image matters. You're going to introduce us to a character. In that first shot, we're going to like them or dislike them. So think about that. You know, even if they're kind of like a homeless person, even a homeless person needs to be likable if that's your protagonist. It's just a human being that we care about that's in a bad place. You got the idea? So the story matters. So inside, common story is somebody loses their wallet, somebody finds the wallet, they have this moral dilemma, what am I going to do with the money? And then in the film, right? We see that all the time. It's not very unique. So I would think about that when you think about your dilemma, or however it says that whatever you're supposed to shoot, that you give it some depth, but try to make it different. You know, I mean, the same storyline could be somebody who has asthma and lost their inhaler. It's picked up by another person who has asthma. There's a moral dilemma. You got the idea. So story is one of the components. We'll look at the story. Is it unique and fresh? Kind of in the same way we look at your personal essay. You know, the personal essays are easier to make unique because you're unique and your point of view is unique. So that's easier. But when you're making up a story that's got to fit in a comic book format, then it's a little harder. But nevertheless, think about it. Talk about it. You know, these short kind of dramas. You know, what are the 5 Ds of filmmaking? The student filmmakers: death, drugs, dope, depression, and the dorms. Okay, I'm waiting for the laugh. It's really hard when everybody has their sounds turned off.
I laughed. I laughed.
Thank you.
I laughed.
I have a question for you.
Two laughs.
I have to go at 7:30. So is it okay if I ask you real quick?
Sure, I'll come back to this.
Okay, so it might have been asked already. I don't know. Sorry, I got in a little late. Totally forgot about the meeting. But I was curious because I know the last meeting that film provisional students from last semester had with the department, where Thelma Vickroy was chair, she said that the next semester, starting this semester, I believe, they would only be allowing people one opportunity to apply to the program, but that we as like the provisional students who applied and didn't get in last semester would still be allowed to. Do you know if that's still a thing at all, or?
Could you, I am unsure because Thelma was a challenge for us. And I'm not going to say any more. We have always allowed somebody to have 2 tries at it, and we have been rewarded. Like Johnny Martinez tried twice. We had several directors in the senior thesis who tried twice to get in. It would have been not good for our program for those people not to have tried a second time. Johnny's one of the major editors on, I think, Entertainment Tonight. So he's making around $7,000 a week right now. So if you will email me and let me know, maybe, and then I'll send that answer back out. I would like to campaign that option is still there, but I don't know. I honestly don't know.
This might provide some insight. On the application, it says you are permitted to apply for film option admission a maximum of 2 different semesters if you are accepted into the university before July 1st, 2020.
There you go. Okay, but email me anyway so I don't forget, because I know she tried to do a number of things that did harm to the film program. So we're now trying to mend that. And, honestly, we're trying to do that, so we want to be nice about it, but it's a good question.
I appreciate you being so candid on that, by the way. Thank you so much for your answer.
Well, I'm also trying to be professional, but sometimes it's hard.
I believe you.
Trust me. At any rate, so is that okay if I finish on that third thing? So the second thing about that you'll be measured for with 10-point value is technically how well did you do in shooting your frames. So if you're walking around with your cell phone, so the aspect ratio keeps shifting, you're not going to get very good points. You'll be lucky to get 5. So if you're going to use your cell phone, by the way, our cell phones are pretty cool. You've got to use it smartly, so it doesn't feel like a cell phone, right? Because everybody's doing it. It also means that I think the third thing is the aesthetics. How much care did you take with the background, your location, the lighting, time of day, mood, and all those things that the camera sees. How much effort did you put in controlling that? And one of the, a lot of the folks that don't score well on this just run out and shoot somebody outside in front of their apartment to get the basic sort of logic of their 12 shots, and then they turn them in, and then they don't understand why they're not in cinematography. So just know to take some care, and then once you've done it, do it early enough so that you have time to do it over. Because you may have like 10 shots that are just awesome, but 2 you got rushed or something. And when you put them all up together, it needs to look like a film that was edited well and it's color corrected so it feels whole. It feels like one cinematic statement. So that's why we divided it into those things, so that the aesthetics of how it looks, how you're framing and composition, how technically you use the camera, and then the story are all 3 components. And I know that if I were in your shoes and I were going through this process, I'd probably have to do this 5 times to get it right. I love editing because everything's already done for me and I can sit and play with it. But when it comes to cinematography, it's a lot of work. Okay. So that's sort of how it works. That's how you need to think about doing the questions. It's not just doing them, it's doing them thoughtfully. And all of you will do it different. There's no one right way to do it, but there is a good way to do it thoughtfully so that your persona is represented well in the portfolio. If you get the idea and you think about what the portfolio is asking, we can get a pretty good picture of who you are, as a potential filmmaker. It does allow us to get some insight. There's a lot that it doesn't show because legally we can't do psychological tests and, or anything else. Can you imagine if we had to do psych tests on film majors? Good grief. Well, there's a comedy.
We have a couple questions, Professor.
Sure.
So now that there is a producing skill area, has this changed the number of people that are admitted into the program? Because I believe last semester was, how is that divided now?
Well, instead of having, we will try to take an equal amount into each one. So we have 4 skill sets. We bring in around 50. Let's use 50 as a number. So 4 goes into 50. Anybody can do the math on that? I can't do the math on that. I'm glad they didn't ask math questions on portfolio.
It's 12 or 13 in each.
Yeah, so at 13 now, the minimum, so this is going to be pushing us, so which is another reason for us going for a BFA, because we might be able to loosen up on this. But I think the university requires a minimum of 12 seats in a class capped at 20. So we'll have to take in a minimum of 12 times 4, 24, 48. So we have to have a minimum of 48 students, and it will be equally divided between the skill sets. And by the way, we're just now figuring this out. The reason we actually built in the skill set is because there's so many jobs that are now available in that discipline. And why the heck not prepare our students to do that? But, so here's, now that I've said that, you all, the student voice is really powerful. And so one of the things that the film club can do is that you have film students that are getting together. There's something of your like mind that's helpful as a group to act as lobbyists. And it would be helpful to say, you know what, we heard you can only take in about 52 students. And that's not fair for those of us who really want to get into cinematography, editing, and sound. More of us want to do that. We think it's unfair. You get what I'm saying? You got to lobby a little bit. And then that allows us for some flexibility. I know that Nate and I are willing to take up, we can take about 26 people each in each of our 355 classes. Remember, those are the constrictors. We can only launch 2 of those classes. So we were normally capped at 20, but he and I have been taking 5 or 6 more just so we have more in the program. So we're cheating a little bit. But in order for the program to grow, and there's no reason it can't, we need to hear some clamor from the student body about, about why you should be a filmmaker and why you as a group are here. And because you are investing a lot of time and for some of you a lot of money to do this. It's no small deal. Okay, if you have enough time, I would like to talk about showcase and senior selections.
You wanted me to remind you of the question, what happens if you don't get in? Into the film program?
So you have a couple of options. First of all, like I said, TV has an option to do their modified version of film production, so you can get that. Remember, your degree is in CTVA. That's what your degree is. So which option you get doesn't matter to the degree. And folks who go through media management through Todd's Holmes option, which is really cool, and learn the business side of management, they get jobs in production. And some of our folks who, we're in merging media or end up being executives over at Hallmark Films. We just don't know how that's all going to work out. So, but when you're in the program, let's just say, for instance, you get into screenwriting. Good option. We have a MFA in screenwriting. You could get a terminal degree. But that does not prohibit you from working on student films. You can work on the 355 films, on the senior films, play a legitimate role. Those all become light items on your resume. So you can show evidence. Plus, when you're really in production is where you really learn. If you're around folks that know what the heck they're doing, then you're going to be able to kind of get it. You'll see how the process works. So you'll learn just by osmosis. So that's not a bad option. The other options aren't as intense, but nevertheless, you can still get the same value. So when you graduate and hit the marketplace, you're still eligible for the jobs. So just know that that's what it is. Now, I have all my degrees are in art. They're not in film. I happened to come into film through a back door by accident. It was a mistake. And it was a wonderful mistake. But nevertheless, it happened. And by the way, that's not uncommon. It's more common than you think. So that if you really want, as a life vocation, you want to be a filmmaker, there are lots of ways to get to do it. Getting into the film production option is not a do or die option. You can learn a lot about filmmaking in emerging media because she has classes where she's teaching green screen and virtual reality. All the principles you're going to be using right in there. You still have to tell a story, right? There are times when, particularly if you go to 4 options, our skill classes may not fill. And if you're another option, we may reach out to the other options and say, we've got seats. Anybody in TV want to get in this class? Anybody in screenwriting want to get in this class? So there are opportunities where by participation you get the value. So if film production as a discipline is what you want to learn, then you'll really have television, which I think you get 2 or 3 courses, and then you have emerging media where you can get a couple of courses. And then you can look for opportunities to hustle getting into some of the film classes.
Professor,
So
does TV production require a portfolio also?
They're supposed to have one, I think, coming up. I read it. They're copying ours.
I think the main difference between the film and TV isn't it that TV needs like a little section of past work too,
Yeah.
like videos you've already done.
It's not past work, but it's basically the film production photo essay in a 60-second short film form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that works because not everyone has the ability or opportunity to be able to make something.
That's something they're going to have to figure out, and you should be challenging. In other words, you're supposed to be getting that education before you submit your portfolio. In the film portfolio, all the classes that are required really prepare you to do the portfolio. Where their portfolio, read the documents that I sent you. They're all based in history. They're all fact-based. Read them and then act accordingly.
And as a reminder too, next week we're going to be having a speaker talking about the TV portfolio.
Right. Okay, do you want me to continue on with the selection for the senior showcase? Okay, so here again, we're dealing with numbers. Our standing in the community, we're in the top 25 film schools in the nation out of, I think, like 450. So we're doing pretty good for an undergraduate. The ones that are above us all have graduate programs that make them look better. But we are unique as an undergraduate program. And one of the things that's been making the difference is the senior showcase evening. So it's no small deal. We know that it's the evening that persuades the Hollywood Foreign Press, or persuaded them to give us, about $15 million over the last 15 years. That's a lot of money. We get a lot of unusual support from the university and the Student Association, and we are getting accolades and people are getting jobs because of the evening. So we have learned that, and now we know that we have to be careful about what the evening's effect is. So we know that we can only afford, because of the time it takes to screen, about 4 or 5 films. So that becomes the number that we can screen at the showcase evening. We also know that those 4 or 5 films must be different. They must be different in genre, in topic, approach, everything. So we're looking for uniqueness. And so part of your journey will be to figure out what's been done in the past and what makes for a good story in the future, because the showcase evening needs it. All students in the program, so if there's a cohort, when you come in, let's say you're coming in your semester and there's 50 students with you, right? Or 55 students. And you will all go through the program uninterrupted together. You will be making, the people you come into the program with are the ones you'll be doing the senior projects with. That's how we're able to ensure that we can get them done with students who are all prepared and speak the same language. And also it's helpful for your learning, developing your network base too. You're getting to know people that you're going to be with maybe for 20 or 30 years. So, all students in the cohort can submit a script. Usually, out of a group of 50, half of them submit a script. I'll say between 22 and 28 scripts are submitted in a semester. Those go to a professional reviewing panel. They're critiqued, and then the top 8 then are brought back, and the students who are the writers of the script are entitled to be the director. If they don't want to direct, which some don't, then we can assign a director. But anyway, then they have to do a pre-production development. And when they do the development, they have to prove the doability of the project. And we've had some pretty interesting projects. We've gone to Thailand to shoot, Montana, Napa Valley. We've been all over the place. But we are able to do it because the students proved that they could do it. In the limited budget they had, they were able to do it. We've done all kinds of weird comedies and horror films and, political topic films. And all this stuff. There's lots of possibilities. But anyway, the 6 or 8 then that approve the doability, that again goes to for review, and then the top 4 are selected, crews realign, and they wind up, and it's now a 2-semester process. So they try to get principal photography shot in semester 1, so that in semester 2 you're doing the pickups and the editing and the post sound and all of that stuff. It's a pretty tight schedule, actually. So again, it goes through jury. It's, you know, it's part of the success of it is in the networking, and part of the success is in being unique and fresh, kind of like you're doing with your portfolio. So your portfolio is in a way preparing you for that. We would like to do more films, but on average, a senior thesis film has been running between $26,000 to $34,000. That's a lot of money. It also means, so this may help some of you who are on the line deciding whether you want to go into film. Film is expensive, so that for the 355 class, you will probably need to have about $300 for your class project. Each class has a team of 6. So there's 6 people with $300 gives you a budget to go shoot a reasonably good 6 to 8 minute film. When you do your senior thesis, each of you needs to bring in $1,500. So if you bring in $1,500, you have a crew of 18, that gives you around $18,000 or $19,000 to start. Remember, you've got to reach up to your that $26,000 mark. Hollywood Foreign Press kicks in $5,000 or $6,000, depending how well the Golden Globes go. There may be more by the time you folks get in there. The Student Association, part of your lab fee, kicks in around $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000, depends on what, you know, how well they are per project. So you're going to be augmented by $3,000 to $4,000 from Hollywood Foreign Press, and from the Student Association another couple thousand. So you got about like $6,000 or $7,000 on top of your 18. So that leaves you around, you know, if you're really smart, you do. Hold on a second. But that, by the way, since you contribute that, you have rights. Also, as a student, you have the right to do your job and not have somebody tell you what to do. I'm telling you that in terms of how we directors work. Directors cannot be Napoleon Bonaparte, because everybody's partners and, you know, team players and students all learning at the same time. So it has to be fair and equitable that way. So just know there's something like that. Anyway, video.
We had a question. If you're not in the film option, production option, can you still work on a senior thesis?
Absolutely, and you should. Remember, it's a line item of experience on your resume.
How do you, like, do you ask just a random group of seniors, can I help you work? Or
yeah, in fact, they'll go out soliciting. They're looking for bodies. You know, when you're spending a lot of money and you've got 30 minutes to light a master shot, you need some folks around, you know, pulling cables and setting up lights and moving all the things around fast. You've got to do that. So you need lots of bodies. And of course, we didn't shoot this last semester because of COVID, and we're not shooting this semester because of COVID. But once we get back up, then we're going to be really pressed to catch up, and it's going to take there's going to be a lot of opportunities to participate. And the senior projects are 6-day shoots, 5 or 6 day shoots. It doesn't mean you have to commit to, you know, being with them. You can commit for a day or two. Just do something. If you do something, you're entitled to a credit. That's what you're looking for. Okay?
We also had a question earlier. You mentioned Emily, who won an Emmy Award. Is there a way that we could see her work?
Good grief. I have to, It's on a reality show, a real popular one. It's Katie, I think. If somebody will email me and remind me, then I will send it the link, because it's somewhere in my email base all about her accolades and stuff. In fact, I tried to find out what her email was because I wanted to congratulate her personally. But I know she's in the trades. So if you let me know, remind me, then I'll send you the link. But CSUN students are everywhere now, every position. And Nate, when you take Nate's 351 class, he has guest lecturers that come in, they're all from the industry. When you do your senior thesis, we have mentors, that come in for directing, Donald Petrie for correcting, and Robert Townsend is another one of the directors. We have 2 or 3 cinematographers that come in and mentor. We have script supervisors, lots of professionals that come in and give you inside tips on how their professions work and what they're doing. Like Jack Okabayashi is one of the top rated first ADs. He does all the major films. He'll come around and talk. And we have Michael Guerrera, I think several others. They just love coming back because, they're alumni and you're part of them and they're part of you, and they just want to share everything about it. So you're going to get all of this personal stuff too. It's not just muscling through the classes with yokels like myself.
Yeah, Donald Petrie came in last night, actually.
Oh, did he? Isn't he interesting? He's so full of life. Yeah. I actually cut something with him when he was first beginning to direct. It was an Aaron Spelling show called The Heights. And it was the first, Aaron is super conservative. His stuff is really melodrama. But this one was about a young garage band of, 8 kids. And so we wanted to do MTV cutting and everything. And Donald was pitching and Aaron Spelling just wouldn't let us do that. It had to be a conventional cut. And Donald went to the, to the bat to try to get Aaron and who was his partner? I can't remember his partner's name. Anyway, we just couldn't win that battle. But it was fun working with him because he was young and even had more energy and was really creative. And when we wanted to experiment and try some stuff, he was full game. It was a lot of fun. And here we are years later cooperating as mentors on the project. It's kind of interesting. Any other questions? Well, if you do, then just let me know, send me an email, not hard to find, and let me know your question and I'll answer it as best I can. You've been a good crowd. I can tell you're all engaged because of the way you're watching the screen. And I appreciate that. It makes me feel good. Okay. I don't know who's in charge. Do I get to toss the gavel over to you?
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hoggan, for coming in again and offering all your insights.
Okay, then I'm going to say sayonara and wish you all good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I think that pretty much does it for us tonight, everyone. Look out for an email with some updates. Next week, we're going to have that TV speaker coming in, and then we'll have some other events coming up after that. Any other officers want to add any last things before we head on out?
We'll be sure to try and get that email to you guys quick too with the recording.
Did anyone have any more questions that wasn't answered?
Do you know what forms he was referring to?
He's gonna forward it to us, but I'll email it to the rest of the club.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll see you all next week.
All right.
Bye.
You guys.
Stay safe, everyone.
That's a good turnout.
All right. Thank you, Jan.
Helpful tips.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Forgot to leave.
You're good.
I'm sorry. I was gonna come to movie night last night, but I started working on Fridays. So like last week, but I started
Oh.
working on Fridays. So
Yeah, that won't be the only one we have. So you have
yeah,
some more
I wish
opportunities to come out for
I could
those.
say that I wish I wasn't working on Friday, but the fact that I'm working on Friday is what let me get a PS5. So
Priorities.
priorities. But I'll definitely come to the next movie night. I put in 2 movies on our list. So
Okay.
okay, see you guys around.
See ya. Stay safe.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay. So I've been recording this entire time. I'm going to end it right now.